Yeah, Bryce Underwood may have just changed Michigan's ceiling, and me and Zach might be really stupid for our Big Ten predictions if it happens. So, in this episode of the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel, we are going through the Michigan offseason a little bit with one of Michigan's biggest questions. How quickly can their young quarterback become good enough to let the rest of the roster matter to their full extent? Not elite, not a Heisman winner, not even perfect, just good enough. B plus type of play. Anything higher than a B would be fantastic. Well, the latest signs out of camp suggest that Underwood may be getting there faster than a lot of people are expecting. And there's a lot of media that is hyping up Bryce Underwood right now. And if that's real, Michigan at plus 4,500 to win the national championship suddenly becomes a lot more interesting, to say the least. Not because I'm telling you Michigan's about to win the whole thing, please don't hear me that, but because the biggest thing holding Bryce Underwood down, holding Michigan down, being Bryce Underwood, may be completely changing at this point. So here's what's actually going on and what matters. All right, there's been tons of buzz around Michigan with their scrimmages and fall practices lately. It's not just simply that Bryce Underwood has oh, wow, I threw a pretty ball in practice. No, the encouraging part is that he reportedly looked more decisive in Michigan's final scrimmage, which is the word I care about most. Decisive. Because the raw talent has never been the question. Everybody knows the arm is there. Everybody knows the athletic ability is there. Everyone knows why he was one of the most hyped quarterback recruits in the country. But I'm hesitant to say this is the same Michigan media that we saw with Davis Warren and Alex Orji, because this is a Kyle Whittingham program where I don't think he runs his program the same way Sharon Moore did, right? The question was whether Michigan could get all of the talent to function on schedule. Can he get you to the line, identify what he's seeing, make the right decisions, get the ball out, keep the offense moving without needing every play to become a highlight? It's not about an 89% completion percentage in practice like Sharon Moore's group tried to do to us. So that's the difference between having a talented young quarterback and having a quarterback who can actually win a Big Ten title. And there was one drive in particular that caught my attention. Michigan reportedly put together a 16-play touchdown drive in the final scrimmage. 16 plays is impressive, especially for Bryce Underwood to be able to move the ball down the field like that, and shows that Jason Beck is making real progress with him. I mean, think about what that means. That is not, one busted coverage. It's not Bryce Underwood scrambling around, throwing a 60-yard bomb, and everybody loses their minds. A 16-play drive requires patience. It requires decisiveness. It requires converting. It requires staying out of, catastrophic mistakes. It requires the quarterback to keep making decisions over and over and over again, like a J.J. McCarthy did on third downs, doing such an excellent job. For a young quarterback, that might tell me more than just 3 spectacular throws. And this is where I think people are still looking at Michigan through an outdated lens. The preseason version of this team was easy to understand. Great defense, really good running game, kind of question marks at receiver, question marks at the offensive line, but overall you kind of trust it. And a young quarterback who might eventually be special, but could be a problem early on with how young he is. If that version of Michigan shows up, then yeah, this is probably a talented team with a hard ceiling. You can beat a lot of teams by running the football and playing defense, but when you get to Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, USC, and eventually the playoff games, somebody is going to force your quarterback to make real throws. You cannot hide him forever. But I don't think Jason Beck plans on hiding Bryce Underwood. You look at what he did with Devin Dampierre, and so when I hear this news, my first thought goes back to Davis Warren and Alex Orji, but then I also say, I trust this staff a whole lot more than I trust Michigan's previous staff, because if Underwood is already speeding up mentally, this equation completely changes, because there are other things happening around him that suddenly matter a lot more too. Michigan's offensive line has reportedly had a strong camp against the defensive front that should be one of the better units on the roster, and that's important. You don't need Michigan's offensive line to be an immediate Joe Moore award-winning group. You just need it to be able to stop being a liability in pass protection. Run game, sure, great. All right, they were great last year. There are tons of big runs and everything, but pass protection left a little bit more to be desired. If they can protect well enough, create movement in the run game, and keep Underwood out of constant third and long situations, you're making life dramatically easier for him. And then there's the receivers, and those guys are improved a lot too. This was another area that I had real concerns about for Michigan for years. Michigan had talented names at times, but at some point, the wide receivers have to start making plays. This year, they have talented names, and I think you're going to start seeing some of those plays. The camp reports have been encouraging there too. Andrew Marsh has continued to flash. Other receivers have been making catches. The overall feeling coming out of camp is that this group has made progress. J.J. Buchanan, Celesi Moa, Jamie French. I mean, there are guys on this roster who really feel like they can step up and be reliable pass catchers for Bryce Underwood. You know, that's not Ohio State's receiver room, and that's not what I'm trying to say it needs to be. The argument is that the offense may not require Bryce Underwood to rescue it. It just needs a massive distinction to where he doesn't have to rescue it. He has players around him. He has pass catchers that he can rely on. You see, young quarterbacks get in trouble when every third down feels like they have to save the program, right? If there's bad protection, no separation, no run game, which has not really been a thing for Michigan, but now you have to go back to the magic, and that's how freshmen start pressing. That's how the crazy arm turns into a crazy interception, crazy decision-making, because they're just trying to do anything they can to try and keep the drive going, to try and make the play for the team. That's how a quarterback looked unstoppable in high school and then suddenly looks hesitant in college. But give that same player a functional offensive line, a reliable run game, and receivers who can actually finish plays. Now the talent has room to breathe. Now the talent has some ability around him to be able to let him be the special player that he is. And that's why the Underwood update matters so much more than just it was one good scrimmage. It may be happening at the same time as the rest of Michigan's offense, which is stabilizing around him. There's another piece here that makes me more optimistic about Michigan's overall ceiling too, and that is Rod Moore. Rod Moore has reportedly stacked 4 straight practices. That matters because Michigan's identity is still going to start on defense for this team. If Moore is healthy and playing at the level that Michigan expects this defense, has the ability to keep Underwood from needing to score 40 points every week, that is excellent. That is exactly how you want to build around a young quarterback. Don't ask him to be Bryce Young in week 1 or anything like that. If he can be, great, but you don't want to have to put that kind of pressure on him and ask him to be that. Ask him to make the throws that are there. Ask him to protect the football. Ask him to say, hey, trust the rest of your team. Be patient. If it's 3rd and 12, we don't need you to try to be Superman. Just go out there and protect the ball so you put our defense in a good position. He can use his legs to break down. He can let the defense keep the game under control for him. If Michigan can do that early, then Underwood gets something of incredible value. Time to grow before the biggest games, time to see Big Ten defenses, time to make mistakes in games Michigan can survive. And that's important for Bryce Underwood because some of their biggest games of the season are at home to start the year. You don't face Oregon and Ohio State until later on in the season when you're going on the road. You're talking about a quarterback with an entire season of reps with tough competition, but at home for a good amount of the season to be able to grow. That's where this could get dangerous for the rest of the Big Ten. That's where the rest of the Big Ten has to be cautious because you're going to be facing Bryce Underwood in a favorable environment with him growing and with him, hopefully for them, being able to trust his defense. Camp reports are camp reports, all right? I'm not sitting here saying that these are gospel and that everybody needs to believe in these and these are the number one thing. They just kind of get the conversation going most of the time. Nobody wins the Big Ten in August. Nobody wins a national championship because the quarterback was decisive in a scrimmage, and Michigan still has questions. How does Underwood react when a defense disguises pressure and then punches him in the mouth? What happens after his first bad interception? What happens when Michigan cannot run the football? What happens when he is down 7 in the 4th quarter and everybody in the stadium knows he has to throw it? Well, we've not seen that yet from Bryce Underwood, but we have seen that from Jason Beck. And I think that is the biggest piece that can give this Michigan team confidence and this Michigan fans confidence is because Jason Beck has done this before. He did it at Utah, and he can do it again here at Michigan You would think, right? If he did it there, he can do it here. Michigan is plus 4,500 on FanDuel. It's some, automatic. It's not some automatic steal, but it does provide them with more ceiling to be able to get to. The number is interesting because it shows how much uncertainty is still baked into Michigan this year. If you believed Underwood was already a finished product, Michigan would not be sitting at plus 4,500. But that is also what makes this development worth watching. The market is still pricing in the risk category. Michigan fans are hoping the risk is shrinking. And if it is shrinking, I think the national conversation around Michigan is going to change very quickly. Because what is the thing that everyone says about a team with a great defense? Good line play and a strong run game. They're a quarterback away. Now, you hate to hear that, especially when you spend as much money on your quarterback as Michigan has. But what if they're not a quarterback away anymore? What if the quarterback's already on the roster? His timeline just moved up. That does not mean that Underwood needs to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten or win the Heisman or anything like that. He probably doesn't do any of that stuff this season. I wouldn't put that kind of expectation on him, I guess is what I'm saying. Michigan just needs him to be good enough that defenses cannot load the box, dare him to throw, and turn the entire offense into a fistfight. If he can punish that approach, now the running game gets easier. Now play action gets more dangerous. The defense gets more rest, and Michigan can start dictating the game instead of just trying to survive and hopefully cross your fingers and get a big run. And suddenly that ceiling starts moving from a dangerous team to a real Big Ten contender. And this Michigan team should absolutely be a real Big Ten contender. Maybe even a playoff team with a puncher's chance at making it deep into the playoffs too. That is the part that I think people are missing. The Michigan conversation does not require Bryce Underwood to become a superstar overnight. It requires him to be ahead of schedule. And right now, the most encouraging signs are about exactly the things young quarterbacks usually struggle with. Decision-making, playing faster, mechanics, footwork, sustaining drives. I mean, those are the boring things to talk about in camp, but those are the things that Bryce Underwood needs to be getting the best at right now. The highlight throws will come, and look, trust me, those are fun. The highlight runs, those are all fun, and those will come. But right now, I care more about whether he can run the offense. And if the answer to that question is starting to become yes, then Michigan's ceiling is not what we thought it was when we did our predictions. It's higher, maybe even much higher. So the question for Michigan fans, and the question I'd like for you to answer in the chat, and honestly the rest of the Big Ten too, so you think about it too if you're not a Michigan fan, let me know in the chat. If Bryce Underwood is already ahead of schedule, where do you put Michigan? Kind of like a tier for me. Are they a Big Ten contender, playoff team, or are they still moving too fast based on August camp buzz? Drop your answer in the comments and let me know. Like the video while you're here. Go ahead and subscribe. Hype the video as well if you would. We really appreciate you listening and watching to the Big Ten Huddle. Covering a lot of football right now. We'll get to basketball once we get into basketball season. We appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.